out here at Grid Life, South Carolina. It is absolutely packed. Beautiful track, beautiful weekend. This weekend, we're going to be drifting the C6 Corvette competition drift build. It's going to be our first time taking this on a proper fast track, a proper road course. It's going to be our first time really stretching its legs. We've driven the skid pad a number of times. We've driven the infield at the Freedom Factory, but never a big fast track. And big fast tracks are kind of what this car is built for. I mean, most of the time we've drifted it so far, we're only on 4 or 5 pounds of boost. We can go all the way up to 15. So we've probably only used 600, 700 horsepower so far of the 1100 it's capable of. So this is going to be our first time really having to turn it up, putting it in fourth gear and going really, really fast. From what I understand, this track, we can enter as fast as 130, 140 miles an hour. So it's going to be pretty intense. It's going to be, again, the first time drifting this car on a fast road course or any track that's not a slow technical skid pad. So I'm really excited. We're going to be going out here in about an hour, so wish me luck. Should be fun, exciting, amazing. I'm really, really ready for this. All right, Josue's going out with me for this first session. All right, first session, not good. First time we've taken this car out ever and had issues. Everything just got hot. When we were just cruising around, I saw the temp climbing to like 196, which this car has always cooled really well. So I'm wondering if we're not a little bit low on coolant. I feel like we've got to have some air. The other thing that happened, this is our diff vent breather. So this allows the diff to breathe. And it just puked diff fluid everywhere. I don't know if it's just the speed or the heat. The diff didn't feel that hot. It might have been a little over full, but it just puked it out of that breather all over the place. So we're gonna change the gear. We had somewhere in the 120 range. Wheel speed, we need like somewhere in the 140 range. So we're going with the next, it's hard to explain, but basically the lowest I have to switch the gearing up would be 143 in fourth. All right, we're going out again. We bled the cooling system. We changed the rear gear a lot. I thought we had our gear in it that we didn't have. We had a different gear in it. I got something in my eye. So we changed it more than I intended, but I want to just try it and see where we're at. It might still be where we need to be. Air it up a little bit. The car's pretty hooked up, and then yeah, hopefully it just doesn't get hot just cruising around. With the longer gear, we'll be at a lower RPM when we're doing our cool down, so hopefully that'll help. It's just the first time I put this car in this situation where we're driving, you know, just like driving for so long. We're not just sitting there idling. It does great cooling at idle, which is the point, because that's most of the normal drifting situations. That's what you're doing. But at Grid Life, we're hot lapping because it's cool. So wish us luck. The you can see if you look off in the distance here, a wheel just rolling away by itself. One of the drivers had a wheel fall off on basically our warm-up lap, our out lap before we were going to start drifting. So that caused a pretty big delay. We had to go back to the pits, but then we were out. And I had geared it for 4th, planning to run 4th, but I thought that might be a little too spicy, so I decided to try it out in 3rd, but 3rd wasn't really spicy enough. We're just kind of eating the limiter. We don't have the wheel speed we want. So we're going to have to play around with it this lap and figure out if we're going to need to change it again or if this is going to work. Only one way to find out is to try it. So do some 3rd, and then we'll try to throw 4th and see if she'll take it. Alright, well, the cooling problem better. The cooling's alright now. Like, I did have to cruise kind of slow to get it to drop temp, but it's just so much oil out of the breather again. It's weird, we never had any oil, any fluid coming out of the diff breather that we have. And then today it's like we did the warm-up lap and it was coming out. We'll figure it out. Alright, well, we're still getting some fluid coming out of our breather vent tank here. Our one theory, the diff's upside down. So the port we're using as a breather port, that guy right there, that's normally your drain. So it may just be that the ring gear is just slinging oil right up in it and it's working its way out. I'm not sure because we've never even looked at that thing. We never touched it. We never had an issue. We never even had the filter get wet. So for it to just dump oil everywhere, odd. Doing a good nut and bolt check. Jose's working on the axles now. Me and Raldo just bled the brakes because the handbrake was feeling a little gross. Now it feels good, but it was bottoming out, which is very non-confidence inspiring when you want to enter fast. I'm going to change the gear again. So the gear we put in, kind of an in-between. I was wrong on what we had in the car. It was like 12 miles an hour less than what I thought it was. So when I bumped it up, we ended up bumping up for 30 miles an hour instead of 20. So now we're going back in between the two. Now we're going to be drifting in 3rd instead of 4th. That'll give us a longer 4th gear for cruising on the cool down laps to hopefully help the car not get as warm. So yeah, I mean, the cooling system thing's frustrating, but it's also, this is not how we normally operate a car. It's not the normal scenario when drifting this car. You know, normally you do a run, you sit and idle, which it is great at cooling while it's sitting and idling. That was kind of the point. So the fact that it doesn't cool cruising at 3,000 RPM doesn't really matter except for in this scenario. But that said, I'd like to fix it. I'd like to make it work good. So I'm jibber jabbering. We're gonna tidy things up and go do another cinder session. Now that we're getting comfortable with the track and trusting the car a little more to not lose its mind on us. So as you can see, this gear is pretty much perfect. It is short enough to where when we slow down into the turns, We don't have to clutch kick it or really beat the snot out of it to get it up into the power, but it's long enough to where we can drift through the track without having to eat up limiter. We can still get the limiter, we can bounce it off limiter if we want to, but we're not just standing on limiter all the way through the section. So I'm pretty happy with where it's at now. This is pretty primo. I kept forgetting to click data log on the dash so that way it would log the runs, and these are harder runs than I've ever done in the car, so I wanted to make sure I data logged, and I kept trying to click it mid-run, which was not working that well for me. So since the grid life format is hot lapping, basically everyone who wants to be out on track is out on track at the same time, even though I'd leave myself a decent gap, the car was pretty dang fast. It definitely put it into perspective because I would catch people that were 2 turns ahead by the time I got through a section and just be right up on them. But it was good practice, it was good experience in the car, good seat time in the car to be in all these different scenarios and learn how the car handles them. You know, we're not on the comp tires, but the car's still pretty hooked up, and learning how to drive it behind a slow car and what it can do and what it can't do, it was good, valuable seat time, and it kept things interesting for sure. All right, day 2, right? 2, kind of 3. We got here a day early, but day 2 of actual grid life. And holy moly, there's a lot more people today. Look at how many people that is. So the forecast had called for rain. I was hoping it would hold out, but it did not. It started raining. We watched some of the GLTC race, and then we decided not to drive the first session. But by the time everyone got on track and started going, we went to watch and realized it wasn't physically raining anymore. You know, this car doesn't have wipers right now, and driving it in the pouring down rain would not be very fun. I would just get soaked. But driving it on a wet track, probably not too bad. So I decided to go out and just see what this thing felt like in the wet. This is going to be our first time driving this car in any sort of wet conditions. So it should be interesting. And again, another good learning experience. And really, I'm just here for the fun. Might as well drive as much as I can. So since I went out super late in the session, I only got 3 or 4 laps in, but it was still really fun. It was definitely an interesting experience. It's a good track to drive in the wet. I'm glad I did it, but I am hoping that by the next session it's dried up and we can really wring this thing's neck now that we're getting more comfortable with the track and the car itself. It should only get better from here. So TJ was having car issues at this point. One of the struggles with a newer car is traction control, kicking on and off all the safety systems. But it is a good example of how fast this thing would surge on the people ahead of me. It was honestly blew my mind to see this car doing what it was doing. It's feeling like a ripper, and we're getting more comfortable. So we had changed up the strategy a bit. Instead of trying to get the car to cool down while we were cruising around, I decided I'd do a lap and then pull in and let it cool down. Now, I still wasn't really ripping on it, thrashing it between corners, passing people at Mach 100 like I wanted to, but it was a better system. The car likes to cool at idle. We're going to bring it in, let it idle, let it cool off. We can shut the engine off, leave the water pump and the fans on, let it cool off, and then go back out and do another hard lap. So we're not limiting ourselves as much and trying not to drift certain sections because we don't want the car to heat up. I hate having to do that. So this, in theory, should work a little better, get us a little more seat time. car's holding up good. The cooling issue is just there. It's just a thing that we got to deal with. I mean, the car wasn't designed to run this kind of event. The whole focus was to make it cool at idle, which fortunately it does very well. So I have to come in, stop, let it cool off, go back out. But that being said, we fixed the diff thing. We got no more fluid spraying everywhere. That was nice. And the car feels incredible. You know, we're on a 285 G2. These tires right here, they're lasting so much longer than I could ever have believed that they would last if I didn't try it myself. We got a ton of wheel speed, ton of power, and they are lasting. But the car feels great. The track has good grip, so the car, we still got, you know, kind of a hooked up setup in it from the last comp, and it feels insane. It feels so fast. I mean, this is unlike anything I've ever experienced. You know, I've never driven a high-powered car on a road course like this. You know, the Miata is the only thing at PBIR. So being able to really stretch this thing's legs puts into perspective how fast it really is. When you kind of come out of the corner and are able to open it up, it feels absurd. And coming through that kink, that's my favorite part. Going through there and just laying into it all the way up the hill. I'm having a blast. So we're about to go out again. And unfortunately, Raldo and Josue went to this side of the track, which I wasn't drifting, so I could cool down for this side of the track, which is the first few turns, and they missed it. They missed me going full send.
Sorry.
I'm so disappointed.
We'll get the shot. We'll get the shot.
I don't even care about the shot.
The people will get the shot.
I just wanted you to see it. Driving a fast car on a fast track, a little bit hooked up. A1. So much fun. So much fun. Now that I'm getting comfy, it's like, this is amazing. Session, we decided to change up the strategy yet again. I remembered we had the water sprayer that we got for spraying the intercooler at comps, and we could just spray the radiator and the intercooler and the oil cooler if need be, though that temp wasn't really a problem, and get things to cool down even faster, right back to starting temp, and just go out and do a really hard lap every time, which is what I really want to do. I want to thrash this thing as hard as I can. So I went ahead and sprayed the car down real quick, cooled it off, and since Josue was on the far side of the track, we decided he would hop in when we changed tires and put the next set on. So I'm gonna go do a bit of a cinder lap solo real quick.
So awesome inside. It feels a lot better for the passenger without the thing, obviously.
Yeah.
But driver over passenger, you need it, but legroom is much better. Like it just seems like it just.
Dude, it drives
Oh.
so good.
Wow.
It drives so good.
Dude, and then we needed the drift taxi thing, like with the cars on track when you're like just chasing them down.
Pulling them back.
Ah, dude.
Dude, and coming past them. Coming past our big main.
Yeah, I know. I was like, only like you gotta blast that.
Think about it, dude. We built this shit together.
Insanity.